Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Martin Hearn, Event Director at Futurebuild, and I'm delighted to host today's Futurebuild Connect 365 webinar. Now, this is part of our year-round program that brings together the brightest minds and the boldest ideas driving transformation across the built environment. Today's session focuses on one of the sector's most pressing challenges and opportunities. It's delivering retrofit at scale through a coordinated area-based approach. And I'm thrilled to be joined by two leading voices who are not only implementing this in practice, but are setting a benchmark for impactful collaborative delivery. They are here to share what's working, what they've learned, and what others can take forward. So let me introduce our two expert speakers. Firstly, we'll have Derek Horrocks. He is the chair and owner of Sustainable Building Services, one of the UK's foremost retrofit delivery contractors. Derek is also founder of the National Home Decarbonisation Group and was named Unlock Net Zero Champion last year for his influential work in shaping policy and practice across the sector. Joining him is Neil Clark, Deputy Managing Director at Ricknold Homes, a leading social housing provider managing over 7,000 properties for now North East Derbyshire District Council. Neil brings in valuable client-side perspective on what it takes to create successful partnerships that deliver not only warmer homes, but stronger communities as well. Together, they'll be unpacking how the organisation's award-winning partnership is delivering a £21 million SHDF Wave 2.1 project, part of the War Homes, Local Authority and Social Housing Fund schemes, and what others can learn from their integrated place-based model. Together, so this conversation I feel is really timely as local authorities and housing providers face mounting pressure to decarbonise stock. This kind of joined up scalable approach will be key to delivering meaningful results for households, for net zero and the wider economy. But before we start, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. One of the best things about these webinars is that we want to keep them as interactive as possible. So please use the chat box for general observations and discussion throughout. Now, if you have a question for one of our speakers, please use the questions tab and we'll address as many of these as possible during the Q&A at the end. And also any answered questions will go directly to Derek and Neil to follow up after the session. And finally, today's webinar will be available on demand. You'll receive an email afterwards with a link. So please share it to your colleagues. Futurebuild is all about connecting people and bringing people together. So let's get started. And now I'm very proud to be able to hand over to Derek to begin the discussion.
Hi everybody. Yeah, many thanks, Martin. Firstly, I must apologise. I woke up this morning absolutely full of cold, so if there's a little bit of coughing and snuffling, I do apologise. So yeah, we're here today to talk about a true area-based approach to retrofit. This is something that's extremely dear to my heart. It's something that I've been championing for a long time. Through our large-scale social housing decarb fund, up to Wave 2.2, there's nothing more disheartening, and it really sort of balks when we're doing social housing. We're doing great work social housing, making housing more energy efficient and warmer and drier, cheaper to heat and much healthier. And then next door we have an able to pay, or if you like, a homeowner that might have bought their house through right to buy, who is asset rich and cash poor and can't afford the work. So it breaks the heart to leave them behind. So I started a vision about 4 years ago to leave nobody behind, and that's the mantra of myself, and it's the mantra of Sustainable Building Services. So we're out to use the economies of scale of the work we're already doing in these large scale funds, and then provide economies of scale from that to provide complete cross tenure schemes that is all inclusive and includes private rented, able to pay, private homeowners that are in fuel poverty, and right across the spectrum. And of course, with the MEES coming up soon, it's going to be extremely important that there is an offering for for private renting, which of course many of the fuel poor live in. So it's that local economy, building that local economy, using these schemes to build larger scale schemes, using economies of scale, bringing the training and bringing the jobs into the local area, and ensuring that the local economy benefits and the local communities benefit. And of course, the way we do that is in our partnerships with our clients. We'll talk today about our fantastic partnership with Ricknell Homes and with North East Derbyshire District Council, and how we're going to move forward and provide these schemes. And of course, the next stages of this is to then include, public sector buildings, commercial buildings, heat networks. And we see this as the real start to this real area-based, proper thought through decarbonisation and warmer homes and warmer buildings sort of approach. And this obviously aligns directly with the government's approach to this, with the combined authorities and the way devolved money is now being sent out, and it's also distributed, I should say, and it's also with the institutional finance money that's now coming into the industry, creating this opportunity for this larger scale. So this is like the precursor to that, and this is how we see we're going to start this process now. We're going to build on it, and the way to do it, and the only way to do it, is through partnerships. So just a little bit about myself. Martin said it all. So I've been around the industry for a long time. Very proud to get the Unlock Net Zero Climate Champion of the Year award last year, and be founding life fellow of the Retrofit Academy. I also sit on the PAS 2030 steering group, one of 18 people that does that. I'm very proud to do so. And I chair some large and founded the organisations in the National Home Decarbonisation Group. So a little bit about the business. Sustainable Building Services sits within a wider group of sustainable investments. And first and foremost, we're a purpose-led business. We think about profit with purpose. We think about what are the positive impacts our work is doing on a large scale. And of course, the larger scale we continue to do this sort of work in our partnerships with our fantastic clients, the more people we can help. We're tackling the 5 modern crises of today's time: cost of living, energy security, climate, housing, health, in all the work we do. And again, as I've said, we look to maximise this impact by delivering this mixed tenure, blended funding, maximising funding, and leaving nobody behind approach. So we are one of the few contractors that have delivered all phases of SHDF up to now, before the Warm Homes SHF comes in wave 3. We got 2 of the 12 demonstrator sites, which obviously extremely experienced. Up to date to 2.2, we've completed £200 million worth of value of projects in 8,850 properties, involving 25 registered social housing, 40 large-scale schemes between £1 million and £30 million, and 20,000, most importantly, 20,000 people improve living conditions and well-being. As I said before, it's extremely important to us that we work with our clients and our supply chain and our subcontractors and everyone else involved on a collaborative approach. It's the only way to maximise impacts for the communities that we work in. This continued collaboration over many years, 7 years now with Reitnold, allows us to understand the areas of work in, allows us to understand our clients' needs, the clients' customers' needs, and the needs of the community and the needs of the local area. And that includes training, it includes development, new jobs, everything that goes with it. And of course, the more you're embedded in that for a longer time, the more you can put into it and the more you can make a real impact and a difference. And I think this is where we need to drive much more of this type of work on a larger scale to get them impacts for the communities. So yeah, just wave 2.1, we've done 640 properties with Reitnold, North East Derbyshire District Council, £21 million scheme. Really important to understand these were, non-traditional housing stock in a poor state of repair. A lot of them had to almost be rebuilt before we could install the energy efficiency measures. And by working in that partnership, we were able to do that and to do it quickly. One of the things I'm extremely proud of is that this project was completed on this partnership approach on time and in budget, and it was completed in March 2025. So there's none of this extending until September, none of this January 26, which we're seeing across the industry. You know, by this collaborative approach, we got on, we worked with the partners, and we delivered it successfully. And the Department of Energy and Energy Security and Net Zero and Salix Finance conducted an extensive audit into the scheme, and it saw market-leading results achieved. So I think that's something we can all be proud of. So, you know, we talk about the impacts. That's what it's all about. 1,600 residents, 51,000 total space heating savings, 966,000 CO2 savings, and over 4 million energy savings in kilowatt per hour per year. You know, again, these are improving the lives of real people, real communities, real impacts, really impacting them 5 crises we've talked about. And all of them crises are supporting AIM with the Warm Homes Social Housing Fund and the local grant in Wave 3. It's really important that, you know, local people in the local communities understand the communities, and we recruit our resident liaison officers and site managers and all locally for that community and that neighborhood improvement. So yeah, it's this behavioral advice is something we wanted to just mention. So it's really important that obviously the residents understand how to maximise the benefits of the installed works that we're installing into the properties. So we do a lot of work alongside Rightbuild in ensuring that energy advice and behavioural advice is available. The household impacts have been extremely sort of exciting and heartfelt. Many have commented, you know, how they've seen the properties, how much warmer they are, how much more comfortable. There's no damp, there's no wind coming through the windows anymore. And they spoke of pride of the general outlook and the community and the feel of the community and the difference it makes. And we've all seen that benefit in terms of, you know, you can see there on the pictures, the gardens suddenly are mowed, hanging baskets outside, and people really take that pride in their community, which is a fantastic outcome. Of course, I can talk and tell you all about it. Let's just have a little 3 or 4 minutes video, which will tell you from the horse's mouth about the scheme. Yeah, so we talk about community impacts. That's what's really important. That's the number one driver, I think, of the whole partnership, and I think of ourselves and most of our clients that we work very closely with, and again our supply chain. So that, you know, we feel there's an estimated 5.4 million injected into the local economy, creating jobs and training opportunities. We've worked together, particularly driven by Written Homes, with local schools, colleges, universities, tender and recruitment fairs in the district, providing work experience, employment opportunities, community projects, which we're extremely proud of, refurbishments of community facilities, recycling hubs, setting up funding towards many events and charities, and also being there and helping to run between us. This community involvement team from Written has been excellent and well supported by ourselves, particularly different projects that are protecting endangered British animals and creating spaces for wildlife that turn and obviously enhance the local neighbourhood. So all fantastic stuff, and enabled through the partnership. And while we did this enabled us to develop this consumer-led initiative called Home Hero, which then we use as our if you like our trading name, which now will lead to bringing in the local grant customers and the not able to pay, but fuel poor who live in private properties. So what we've done is, I think this is pretty much unprecedented. We've set a partnership up between ourselves, Written, who've appointed us to deliver the Wave 3 scheme, and North East Derbyshire District Council, who've appointed us to deliver the local grant scheme, and use that together to ensure that we leave nobody behind. So that between us, we maximise funding, we maximise the blending of the funding. We make sure that any profits are reinvested to make sure if it's not viable to do some properties, we use profits to do them properties, and we really make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. So we're covering, when we go into, we're covering whole estates and whole communities. We're not leaving, gaps and people who aren't benefiting from the economies of scale and the funding. So across these schemes, the proposed measures will be solar, EWI, loft insulation, replacement windows, and many other impacts and measures installed. We're looking at 376 social housing over the scheme and 302 privately owned housing. Again, EWI, loft, cavity, windows and doors, solar, battery storage, air source heat pumps, ventilation upgrade, so whole house retrofits. The way we've done it, if you look at the top two there, the SHDF shows the cluster of where the SHDF houses are, and within them clusters and around them clusters are eligible for local grants, already eligible for local grants, up to £30,000 to have their properties refurbed, with obviously under the rules. So we're working as a partnership to ensure that we're using economies of scale from them schemes, from the Social Housing Decarb Fund, to be able to upgrade all of them areas around it. And I think it's by using that area-based approach and using the management that's there and the team that are there, the subcontractor supply chain, they're going to maximise this. So very quickly, I'll just spend very quickly, because we get Neil is going to come on and speak. So we get often quite asked. We're working with Rise very closely. We're working with Desnas very closely, and we often get asked is, over your experience from the grassroots of this developing since the demonstrator, what sort of lessons and what advice would you give? So I'll just spend 3 or 4 minutes on that, but clearly understanding property data is critical. It impacts procurement, it impacts mobilisation and delivery, it ensures projects are realistic and you're not going around in circles, rebudgeting, refinding properties. So before you even bid for these schemes, understand your properties. And of course, by blending the area-based approach, the work we've done on the Social Housing Fund, many of the properties around for the local grant fund are very similar. So the designs we've done and that sort of thing already gives us that information. Selection of the right PAS retrofit assessors, coordinators, professionals, and of course the principal contractor is obviously key. Of course, planned maintenance. It seems obvious, but some people don't do it. Some clients don't do it. Align your planned and your associated works with these schemes, and make sure you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. Make sure you're doing your budgets effectively and properly, and maximise the numbers of residents that will benefit. Early procurement's a massive key. Like it or not, there's a very restricted amount of contractors that understand and can do this sort of work at scale with the PAS requirements, the compliance requirements, the way it's completely differently having to be run. And we have 30 people within our organisation just doing compliance. It's a different world, and contractors and clients, for some who think it's the same as just normal maintenance work they do, often get quite a big shock. So early procure, understand who you're working with, and utilize them frameworks. And if you've got a good contractor you're working with, and it's going well and partnerships created, if you can, stick with them. Again, we've talked about collaboration. That just goes without saying. We've discussed that. Minimize disruption through early engagement. Yeah. These are the two biggest ones. Putting that customer at the absolute heart of everything that's being done. They are the number one. They are what it's all about. Ensure they're involved from day one. Ensure they're kept fully informed. If feasible, have a reserve list if things go wrong that you can bring other properties into. That's another big one that we've learned, so we don't lose that opportunity for maximising the funding. And again, embracing the quality standards. PAS 2023, they're not to be afraid. They're there for the benefit of everybody. Quality is not complicated with the right partners, and it can be done. And if you're being told it can't be done, it can be, because it's being done on a large scale. And with some fantastic outcomes. And if we're going to move forward as an industry and we're going to grow it together, we need to ensure that the quality is 100% correct and the customers are put at the heart of everything we do. Compliance is massively underestimated in this. Again, if people are a little bit inexperienced or contractors are inexperienced, it's massively complexity of the compliance and lodgements causes a huge issue. And then the designated reporting requirements can be quite long-winded, and be aware of that and understand that. So they're really the lessons I've learned. So with that, I'll hand over to Neil.
Thanks, Derek. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neil Clark. I'm Deputy MD and Director of Customer and Strategic Partnerships at Ricknold Homes. I've been involved with the organisation since 2007 when we were established, and have held a number of posts within the business. I'm also the chair of Efficiency East Midlands, which is a not-for-profit procurement consortia, and we do a lot of work as an organisation, both helping the wider client base to procure and secure good quality contractors, but also do a lot of work within the charity sector and do a lot of fundraising to support communities where we have activity being undertaken. A little bit about Ricknold, established in 2007, managing around 7,500 properties that belong to North East Derbyshire District Council. A very, very successful partnership. We initially set off to deliver the Decent Homes programme, and since then we have evolved and developed into an organisation delivering a wide range of refurbishment and regeneration across the area. In 2013, we became registered with the Regulator of Social Housing in our own right. So as a business, we now develop, acquire and build our own homes. We currently have around about 140 properties that we own and manage, including shared ownership, and we are looking to grow that portfolio. We've got a very active development and acquisition team working at the moment. We're quite a big employer in the area, it's around 250 FTE equivalent staff, and we're very proud of the hard work that they do. We have some amazing, talented people who go well above the day job and the job description to support those in our communities that are having a little bit of a harder time in life. We're governed by a board of directors. We've got council appointed board members and professional independent board members, including our independent chair as well. And our governance arrangements are really important. As an organisation working within the public sector, but private in our nature, it's very important that we bridge the gap between the commercial private sector and our obligations in delivering public services. And our businesses are wholly owned by the district council, and the partnership with the district council is really important to our success. We understand what the district council want. We work very closely with them, but being a independent private business, it gives us the flexibility to deliver the priorities that the council wants us to, and work in a flexible commercial approach to service delivery. Our mission is to be the best housing provider for our communities, and I genuinely mean that. We want to do the best for our customers and for our communities, and we put the customers at the heart of what we do. The housing regulator has recently put a really big focus on customers' input, but we've been doing that for many years, and we really get to know what our customers actually want from us and not what we think is best for them. And there's a number of values around that in terms of transparency, teamwork, etc. So we've got a number of key strategies. So we want to provide more homes. We're in an area where there is an increasing housing demand, as there are across the whole country. Social housing and affordable housing providers are seeing a significant increase in demand for a variety of reasons. And we need to make sure we have more homes in our district for rent. But at the same time, we mustn't lose sight of our existing customers and our existing housing stock. And part of that approach is retrofit, and we need to make sure that, as well as building and buying new homes, we make sure our existing stock is as good a possible condition as we possibly can. And we want to invest in the future. We want to make sure that our homes are fit for the 21st century, introducing clean energy, new technology, better ways of managing the home, and better ways of supporting our communities. And the communities need to be sustainable. We need residents who have employment opportunities, training, and want to work within our communities, volunteering, taking part in activities and in events, so that we have a sustainable community for all our customers. Our work with the district council is essential to what we do. We have very strong relationships at all levels through the two organisations, and the council's vision is to create a great place. And obviously, a lot of what we do directly fits into that. You know, we manage housing stock within all aspects of North East Derbyshire, and the council's priorities very neatly align with our priorities, and we genuinely deliver against all of what the council are looking to achieve for its residents of the whole district. I touched on earlier the housing regulator. For those in the housing sector directly, you'll be aware that the regulator of social housing has introduced new consumer standards, and all providers of social housing with more than 1,000 units have to go through an inspection regime. And we were quite an early audit organisation, so the regulator contacted us fairly early last year, and one of the first local authority based organisations to actually get the regulator inspection regime. It was tough, it was fair. The challenges we were faced were honest, and we had a really good experience of the regulatory inspection process. We were very pleased to get a C2 grade, but that's not where we want to be. We want to C1. We want to learn from the areas where we needed to improve, and we are working very hard with the regulators team to actually move towards a C2 assessment, C1 assessment, sorry. We're actually meeting with them again next week, and we have a very clear plan of how we want to get to that higher grade. I was at a session yesterday, and there was comment around what a C2 means and a C1. And C1 is basically means that when we achieve that, we'll be meeting the expectations of the regulator, but that's not the end of the process. It's an ongoing journey, and when we do get to C1, we need to make sure that we continue to challenge ourselves and that we can make sure that in the future we continue to operate at that level. And part of that is listening to customers and making sure that their views actually help in delivering services. So in terms of the District Council's housing stock, we're quite unusual in the country, where 40% of the housing stock is of a non-traditional construction nature. Quite a lot of that is classified as defective under the Housing Act, and that's a legacy of our industrial heritage. We're a former coal mining area, and we had a number of other heavy industries as well, and a lot of our housing was built either post-war in terms of prefab communities, or in the 50s and 60s with system built properties to make sure there was suitable accommodation for people being brought into work in those heavy industries. They're classified as hard to treat, and it's been a massive challenge for both the District Council and ourselves. Around 14 years ago, Rick Norden and an organisation decided to embark on a process of developing opportunities and ideas for every type of home and in every location that was non-traditional housing, and we set up a regen and redevelopment department. And since then, we've worked on over 3,000 homes, and that's either been through retrofit or through demolition and new build to replace what was there before. So we've got a long legacy of how we address non-traditional housing in the area. Key to the success of that has been our work with Sustainable Building Services. Derek touched on the journey we've been through, and collaboration is at the heart of what we do. When choosing a contractor, one of the things that I was very keen on is that we had an organisation to come and work for us that understood what we were about. It wasn't just about being the cheapest bid or being the best or the quickest programme. It was about working with an organisation that got to know what we wanted, what our customers wanted, and what our long-term vision was. I'm very keen for our team here to make sure that we are a good client. And I think if we understand what we want and what our customers want and what our data tells us about our housing stock, we can set out our vision and our mission really clearly. And then when we're going to the market and looking to work with companies, we can explain what we're about, and hopefully then they can join in that journey. And it's not just about a contract or a program or a price. I'm very proud of the work we've done. We've won a number of awards across the two organisations for our collaboration. And part of that success is about making sure right from procurement, right from the early stages of project development, is that we work together and we learn what we're trying to achieve on each particular programme. And we are in sync with each other, and it's really important. Derek and I speak regularly. Our respective teams talk to each other all the time. And together we can actually deliver what the ambitions are for our district and for our customers. Customer engagement is really important. We know our customers really well. We have a lot of information about our customers. Our housing management teams interact with them all the time. And one of the things that we've always done at Ricknold Homes is that we have a technical team delivering projects, but we also have a customer team which is embedded into our programs. And the customer team, our customer team, are the people that call the shots. So if we have a problem with a customer, the technical team has to stand down while we deal with those issues. We're not led by technical programs and contracts managers pushing for program. We're led by our customers, and that allows the customer team to decide when and where we're going to be working and make sure that the technical team are taking account of customers' needs. So customer team very much in charge of the program, and the technical team make sure we deliver around that ambition. As Derek said when he was speaking, it's not about what he and I say. You would expect us to be upbeat and positive about what we've achieved. Our customers are the people that really matter to us. And their voice and their feedback is the important thing for us. And it's fantastic that we don't have to prompt our customers to tell us what they think. They're very vocal. They tell us when we get it wrong, but they're also very good at telling us when we get it right. And we have numerous examples of people whose lives have been transformed by the investment that we've been able to secure and the work of actually delivering improvements to their homes. So as well as focusing on customers, clearly there's an economic benefit for the area we operate in. So £5.5 million roughly injected into the local supply chain. Training, jobs and employment opportunities are very important to us. And I'm really proud of the work that SBS have done with us to make sure that people living in the estates and the communities where we're working have had opportunities for work experience. We've gone into schools together to talk about careers in maintenance and construction. The sector desperately is short of young people coming into our industry, and we need to grab people as young as possible. And if we can inspire one person in a class of 30 odd children to think about coming into construction and maintenance, that's a fantastic thing for the future. And we do a great deal of work supporting local charities and community events. And that's through the Ricknold journey, but also a lot of the work that I do with the EAM team is about working in communities and supporting local charities as well. Sorry, I skipped a slide there. So in terms of wave 3 moving forward, it's joint funding that we've secured, and what we're doing with the district council is mutually supporting each other. At Ricknold, we have a lot of skills and knowledge and experience of how to deliver retrofit at a large scale. The district council have ambition to help its residents in non-social housing to access government support. And as a three-way partnership, we can make sure that the council are getting the same level of delivery and support and expertise through SBS. And by collaborating in where we're doing the work, we get those benefits of large scale, volume, cost benefits, etc. So it's building on all the experience that we have already delivered, and the two programs working together in synergy are just a fantastic way to actually deliver the ambitions for both local communities, national picture in terms of government ambitions, and net zero and things like that. So I think I'm now going to move on to Martin.
Brilliant, thank you, Neil. And yeah, this is the really interesting part of the webinar where we get to answer all the questions, and I'm really pleased to say we've had a huge amount. So if you've got a question, please put it in the question tab, and I'm going to welcome back Derek as well. Before we start with all the questions, a lot of people have asked about how they can become a potential supplier to Ricknold Homes, particularly in that energy management and control space. So, both of you, how do you select your suppliers? How do people get on your preferred suppliers list?
Okay, well, in terms of Ricknold, so we have a procurement strategy which looks at what it is we're trying to achieve. So, for example, I was doing some work this morning on some external painting and decorating at one of our flat complexes. Fairly low value, and our procurement team are going to look for local based painting and decorating contractors within that part of our district. That will be turn up to site, spec, quote, and somebody will get awarded that work. So fairly low level, fairly simple. Let's work with a local supplier to do a specific piece of work. From there, we go all the way up to multi-million-pound open tender processes, working through the new Procurement Act. And then finally, we make use of frameworks. So I have to obviously deal with my dual roles in terms of EAM, but additionally, we're also members of Efficiency North, Fusion 21, Procurement for Housing, a whole range of procurement consortia. And we look to use the most efficient procurement route to give us the right mix of local, small scale, real value for money contractors, but also frameworks where we have access to large contractors, pre-procured, and a lot of those framework providers have an awful lot of support and to be able to deliver work for us as well. So it's a real mixed bag from our perspective. We're welcome to anybody who wants to reach out to us. We've got a general email address, or people can pick my details up through LinkedIn or through this forum. But if anybody wants to work for us, reach out. We'll put you in touch with our procurement team, and we're open to talking to anybody that can bring high quality, high value and partnership type arrangements to the table.
Brilliant. Thank you, Neil. A question, maybe Derek, you can take this one. So there's a perception that people can be very blinkered by tenure. So how have you persuaded stakeholders to take an area-based approach?
So yeah, I mean, really interesting question, excellent question, because there are quite distinct tenures. So yes, you're quite right. There's a social housing tenure. There's a if you like a private rented tenure, and there's which is going to be very difficult to crack, but the MEES will help that. And you've got the able to pay sort of tenure, so that's also extremely difficult too. So we do a mixture of working very closely with combined authorities. So combined authorities are the way the government's moving is they're moving that funding, mixture of different funding, devolving it to the combined authorities. Started in the West Midlands, also in Greater Manchester, and it's going to follow on around the country. So this is all about that local combined authority understanding what's right for their local areas and investing the money in that local area. Then combining that, let's say, with institutional finance and bringing in bank lending and bringing in pension fund lending, and it's this bigger approach we're looking at. And then within that bigger approach, we're then looking at how do we then work with the different types of tenures and different types of tenures within tenures, and what's right locally in each area. And I think it's a mixture of thinking about property for able to pay. You're thinking about, it's not just about energy savings, it's about aesthetics, it's about property prices, it's about living in a warmer, drier, healthier home. It's about it's offering that holistic approach and then finding a financially viable solution for them being able to take on. And some of the work we're doing with green finance or institutional finance hopefully will allow upfront costs to be paid, and then that whole benefit. For instance, if a homeowner invests £30,000 at low level green finance over 20-25 years, their property could be worth 30,000 more day one, and then they've got the benefits of the savings, energy savings along the way. So it's different for different, for different. If you look at, say, the private rented sector, that's going to come more from the stick angle. The government are legislating that they've got to be EPCC, and they'll have to do it. So it's then help. What we're there to do is help make that job so as easily as possible, with a financial solution, a quality-led installation solution, and in some ways a maintenance solution, and potentially an ongoing maintenance solution. So it is different for different areas, and that's where this local-based approach comes in, area-based approach, because we can shape what we're doing in different areas for different tenures and different needs.
Okay, I think a theme that came out of both of your presentations was how we put the tenant and the occupiers first throughout this whole entire process. And one of the questions has been sort of, are we giving them any education, or how are we educating them onto how they can now use their very well insulated and more efficient home? There's a lot about behavioural changes here, and I'd love to sort of get some of your experience from that.
Okay, from our perspective, one of the things that we are very careful about is saying to our customers that we're about to invest a load of money, we're about to do a lot of work and disrupt your life. And one of the things we quite often get asked is, well, how much money are we going to save? And we're really careful to say to people that we will give you the ability to save money, because we're going to make your home more energy efficient, we're going to insulate it, we're going to ventilate it and things like that. But the amount of money you may save is down to each individual customer's choice, because it's about what you do with your energy consumption once we've improved the performance of the home. So a lot of residents will use their heating less because the heat loss is significantly reduced, and it will be more efficient and effective. Some customers choose to live in a very warm home and don't turn their heating down, and therefore there isn't a reduction in energy costs. So one of the things we've learned over the years is to be very clear about the message, is that we will give you the opportunity to save money, but you have to, change your behaviour. It's a little bit like the same message around smart metering. Smart meters is a great bit of technology, but unless you do something with the information being provided, it doesn't mean you save money, sort of thing. But on top of that, what we try and do is make sure that where we have controls, things around ventilation and everything else, we provide a lot of background detail into reasons not to turn your fan off, making sure that your heated controls are set to your lifestyle, etc. And part of the customer journey is that Derek's team, in terms of customer liaison, will be really strong on terms of the actual work being done and making sure the impact is reduced wherever possible. Our team is following up then about actually what do you do once your home has had the work done? How do we make sure that residents know how to use the controls, what to do, with a home that is very different in the way it reacts to heat generation. And, we work in social housing. We will have residents with a wide range of needs. We will have people who perhaps would struggle with the written word, etc. So we need to think about all forms of communication. Doing videos is really useful. We have a range of YouTube videos where we can give information that people can rewatch and everything like that. So it's about support of the right medium about the right things, and not just assuming that because we've done something it's automatically going to be better for those residents. You've got to help and support people along the journey.
Brilliant, thank you. We've had a lot of questions, and you mentioned it yourself a minute ago, Derek, about EPCs and the questioning, are they reliable? People are asking a lot of questions around data. What property data have you used before project starts? How can you ensure it's accurate? And also, how are you assessing the homes both before and after the improvements?
Yeah, so that's another excellent question, and this is something that within the industry has moved on quite considerably. So firstly, there's two stages to this. First one is the PAS process ensures that every house now in the PAS process, regardless of tenure, regardless of property style, regardless of anything, has to have its own detailed retrofit assessment. And this is an extremely detailed assessment to understand the property and how the property works currently and how occupancy works. It covers occupancy, how the home's used. And then from that assessment, then a design's done under the PAS process to maximise the impacts of the measures that we put in. And then the coordination ensures that it's all done properly and all that is followed. So the initial assessments on the projects are absolutely key, but they are very detailed. It's not like an APC. It's a detailed assessment of both how the property is, how it's structured, how it works, and how the occupancy works with that property before we put anything into the property. That's from that is then the designs put in place to make sure we maximise the impact of the measures that we install. So that's kind of that side of it. So that property data is collected on every house and designed solution on every single house, and then a quality installation on every single house. The other side to it is, and it's another business of mine, Sustainable Smart Technologies. In the group, we actually now are installing monitoring equipment in properties. It's only on a trial basis on some properties, and with two clients, one of being which is Reitnold, because Reitnold are extremely forward thinking, and it's a matter of we install this to understand what the property is doing, how it's acting before. Then it's a matter of then it's monitoring how the property is working afterwards, and it's given real-time information. It's humidity, it's temperature, it's energy usage. It covers a whole lot of everything. That real-time data comes back, and then we can use that data that we're getting back to ensure that the householder is using their property correctly and maximising the benefits. And as Niall said, if their benefits are money, saving money on bills, we can make sure that. So if it's maximising on ensuring that the air is as clean as possible, and we can condensation, and we can maximise on that. We can watch that. So if it's it's this, and if occupancy changes in a building, then we can understand what that means. So if particularly in a social home, let's say there's a family of 3 in there, maybe two people as partners and a child, and then maybe let's say the elderly parents come and live with them. Let's say there's a baby in the house, 2 dogs, whatever. We can see then what effects that's having, and make sure that the information is used to make sure that they're still using that property to the maximum of the outputs or the impacts they actually want. So there's 2 things. There's one actually physically going and assessing and seeing exactly what's there, and talking to the customer and seeing what they actually, what they want out of it, and how their occupancy and what their habits are. And then there's actually physically monitor it in real time and ensuring that we understand. This is a really exciting part of the business now that we're doing. We're very grateful to Ricknold and Niall's team for working with us on the pilot that we're doing at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you, Derek. This is a question for both of you, and quite a lot of people have been asking what the biggest challenges are to delivering community-based retrofit. And in particular, one person said, well, what happens when a householder is not interested and not willing to have the retrofit as well? So I think that's a big question. Neil, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Really good question, and a real problem as well. So what we try and do, or what we do is when we have a program which we've settled on in terms of where we're going to be working in any particular year, we have an equal level of communication with owner occupiers, private rented sector, etc., where we've got stock that we're going to be working on. It's relatively easy for us because our customers are supported through the journey, but we will do the work because it's part of our investment plan. But when we communicate with them, we equally start communicating with the other tenure types within that street or that estate, that community. And what we tend to have found is that the owner occupiers, the private rented sector, landlords are initially very interested because they can see the benefits and they can see the scale that we're operating. So we get a lot of interest to start with. And then when we get down to the detail in terms of the sort of work that might be needed to be done, the cost of that work inevitably, and the impact on the individual homes, we start to get a few more challenges. So, for example, if somebody's just had a fairly new kitchen or a bathroom and we have to install the fan in those 2 areas, they're not quite so keen all of a sudden. So there's lots of barriers to it. But the key thing is to explain the benefits, the fact that if we're operating in an area at scale, the cost of those works will be less than having it done on a one-off property individually at some point in the future. And also the street scene benefit. If we do 10 homes on a street and the odd one out is the private rented or the owner occupied, clearly there's a value issue as well, sort of thing. So we do it from a comms perspective, and then Derek's team pick it up in terms of how they can help those residents and those owner occupiers moving forward, sort of thing. So.
Sorry, Derek, do you want to pick it up from there? Anything to add?
Yeah, no, just a slightly different sort of approach to looking at it. So two of the, and everything now said is extremely valuable and correct. But what we think is the best way of doing it is showing people what we can do. So using this area-based approach, the biggest thing we're getting, and you could even include sort of social landlords in this, which we help with grants. But the biggest thing we're getting across all tenures is there's 2 things. One, how do I fund it? How to fund it? What's my payback? What's my return on investment? Which we're working really hard in each individual area to show them that works. But B, is how can I trust who's going to come in and do the work? So that's the second biggest. So they're the 2 biggest barriers that we're seeing right across the spectrum. So what we do with this approach is you can actually go and say, well, look, we've worked with Ricknold for 7 years. You can go and speak to, Joe or Mabel down the road there, who had their house done 7 years ago. You go and ask her what her experience was. You go and ask her how her property is now. You go and ask them whether they were happy with the experience, and 7 years on, whether they're happy with their property, whether they've got any problems, whether if they did, it was dealt with. And it takes away all that. And part of this trusted partnership with Ricknold and with North East Derbyshire is that 2 trusted partners in the area, and then we include us as a trusted partner in the area because we've been working there so many years, are all saying that, this is the right thing to do. You can see what you're going to get. You can speak to people who've had it. And that is much more, powerful than someone ringing up from a door knocker under a different scheme saying, do you want any insulation? We can get you it for free. And that just horrifies people, quite rightly too. So it's that approach of much bigger thinking, bigger scale, tackling the needs of the different people within that area. I know someone mentioned before about slightly different about heat networks, which is another great. So the information that we're now gathering and the work we're doing is we're on this larger scale is informing the possibility of where we can use heat networks, where we can use. We're obviously moving to a more, like it or not, a more demand-led rather than supply-led use of energy, and local demand is going to be how it's managed going forward, in my opinion. I think so. To inform, ensure we get them local heat networks in place, where the generation's coming from, how that's being connected up, where the DNO comes in to work to connect that up. It's all bringing that information into one central point, whereas before it's so scattered. Everyone's running around doing lots of different things. So, that's all really interesting as well.
Brilliant. We've got one very quick question, and I think this is a nice one because it's extremely sort of future focused as well. And it's around, what do you feel the clean heat, the role that clean heat will play in the measures delivered through Wave 3 of the Warm Homes Social Housing Fund? I think that's a nice one to finish on.
I think for us, clean heat's really important, but retrofitting older homes is not without challenge. And for a lot of our customers, moving away from a long history of being able to turn the boiler up or have very flexible heating use, etc., is going to be one of the big challenges. So I think absolutely clean heat is important for the future. Retrofitting older, less well insulated homes, with challenging construction details is going to be interesting. But I think also the customer journey in terms of moving away from that sort of turn the thermostat up, turn the heating on to a more background led based heating approach is going to be a big thing. And support for customers, education is going to be really important and a key area for us as a housing provider. So.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to wrap it up there. I want to thank you both for a really engaging and insightful discussion today. I want to remind everyone that's online at the moment, we will get back to all the questions that have been asked. And also, this goes on demand. So, in literally 5-10 minutes, you'll have a link where you can download, watch this again on demand. Please share with your colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much.